What's up, y'all? Welcome to another successful Sundays. I wish I had one of those, like those themes of beep, 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 beep. Of course, my name is Coach AJ, Dope Life Coach, the dopest life coach out there. And today we're going to be talking about Kai Sennett a little bit because I saw this clip that he did interview with Shannon Sharp, and it really started to make me think about it, how we value our core values to be the successful selves for ourselves. You know what I mean? Like how those values are so important. But I'm also going to go into one key step that I forgot to mention when it comes towards setting our goals for this year, which are non-negotiables. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I want you to think about Kai Sennett when he said that he turned down a $60 million deal with Kick. He turned it down because he realized it just wasn't a good deal. And I resonated with that so much for two reasons. Number one, I don't know if you remember back in like 2005, Dave Chappelle had the Chappelle show, and he was considered crazy when he gave up a $50 million deal with Comedy Central, I believe it was. They thought he was nuts. Everybody was talking about, oh, there's no way I would give a $50 million deal. And then he packed up his family, went to Africa. Now, being as an adult now, being 36, I understand where he was coming from far more. He packed up and he left primarily to regroup himself and realizing that he was almost going to sell himself out for a contract of his show. And to be very fair, if you are a Chappelle fan, my brother and I are massive Chappelle fans. Um, the best season that he actually had, there's two, season one and season two. After that, it just kind of like fully fell off. And then they just put out material of like other videos and episodes that they had, or, little sketch that they had. And it wasn't even that great. It wasn't even that great. So Kai said, and giving up $60 million to Kick, people think that he was selling out. Perhaps people think that, perhaps people think he was crazy. And a lot of people in the comments, I watched many clips back to back of trying to see how people, I love to do that sometimes. Like I'll watch a video and I go through the comments to see how people perceive the clip, if they understand, not understand, whatever. And what he said, what people were saying in the comments was, if, well, it's nice to say that you gave up $60 million, a deal for $60 million when you're already a millionaire. But let's keep it a buck. He wasn't always a millionaire. He wasn't always successful. He didn't always have everything that he has right now. He does now, but he didn't always have an option. Like he started his entire platform. I think on YouTube here alone, he's 11.5 million subscribers. On other platforms, he has TikTok, Discord, like it. The list goes on of how he's just killing it in the content game, and he's bringing a lot of people on to embrace the entire situation with them. I know he's a huge fan. Like he's had many people in on his lives before, from I think Kevin Hart. I'm trying to remember. I think Quavo, not Quavo, hear me not Quavo. But I forgot one of the ones from Migo. I forgot Cardi B's ex. I'm so sorry. I totally forgot his name right now. But he's had like a following, you feel me? So how are we gonna sit there and say, like, oh, it must be nice to accept that, not accept that from a position of power? Dave Chappelle, he could have easily signed that $50 million deal. He could have easily said, I'll just do it. But he tapped into his values of what mattered to him the most. And quite often when we think about values, I think they fluctuate as we grow. And when you get into the position of wanting to grow more, they will fluctuate, they will change depending on how higher you get. And I'm just going to list off a couple of core values that you need to keep in mind to have your successful 2025, but at the same time, core values that has helped me as well to become as successful so far as where I am. The very first one is integrity. Integrity is a massive one. And when I think about Kai and Dave Chappelle giving up, like massive amounts of money, right? Because even $50 million back in the early 2000s was a lot of money if you were to, you know, calculate it now. And I think about, give if someone's saying, you know what, no, that's just not for me, based upon my principles and where I stand, it wouldn't be a good deal. It'd be going against my integrity as a human being. Because when you think about integrity, it's honesty, strong moral principles build on trust and credibility in both personal and professional relationships. And integrity is everything. Your integrity is absolutely everything. And integrity is so important to me because I stand on it. That's the principles I live on. That's the trust I want to build both personally and professionally with others. And when I think about Kai saying no to that $60 million deal, when I think about not Tiger Woods, I apologize, Dave Chappelle saying no to his $50 million deal at that time, there's more to come. When you're in any type of business, if a door opens up for you or any type of part of your career, or just even your personal life, when you're in that midst of stuff and something comes up and you're like, oh man, this seems like a great deal, but something in the pit in your stomach is kind of telling you that I don't think this is a great idea. Something in the pit in your stomach is kind of telling you this is going against my core values, my integrity, and so on and so forth. Follow that. Now I know people are gonna say, well, that could just be anxiety. And I hear that. I hear that. That's why you work through it, you reflect, and you kind of write out how you feel. And it's always good to seek professional help. Ask somebody that's in the same position that you're trying to achieve and go towards and say, hey, I got this great idea coming up. What would you suggest? This is where I am. This is where I want to go. It's okay to seek help and ask for help, right? Don't ever feel like that's a sign of weakness. No, it's definitely not. Never a sign of weakness. But when you think about as you're growing in 2025, think about your core values. So the first one that I would suggest that is an important one to have on your list is integrity. The second one is discipline. So I want to really talk about discipline in a kind of a different way. I think that discipline is constantly used with working out and constantly doing the discipline to get to where you want to go. But I want you to think about it this way. Discipline is far more important than consistency. Hear me out. Consistency is important, but if you heard me say this before, we got no problem being consistent. It's the discipline aspect that's hard. The discipline is when you have to do something when you don't feel like doing it. The discipline is when you are faced with distractions and challenges because life is just lifing and is whooping your behind, and everything in you is just like, nah, I'm just gonna roll over, and nah, I'm just not gonna do it today. The discipline is you saying, I'm gonna give it the percentage I have. The discipline is I have 25%, so I'm gonna give it my all, which is 25%. That is discipline. That is discipline. Sometimes when we think about discipline, it has a sense of like negative vibe, right? Who wants to be disciplined? So structured and broad and straight and narrow, right? But when you think about discipline of being the way that you can hit your short and long term goals, even when you're faced with like those distractions, those challenges, when life is lifing and people are peopling, even when you're faced with those moments in life when you just want to say, hell no, that's when the discipline really comes in. You may have to adjust, but that's when your discipline really comes in. The third one I would say is resilience, which kind of connects with discipline. That's kind of why I put it right after it. It's resilience is like bouncing back. I'll give you a bit of a personal story if you don't know. Back in 2022, um, beyond being a coach, a speaker, mentor, and having an online clothing, mental health clothing brand, I also have a job, and I was unfortunately assaulted at my job, which led me to go through PTSD, depression, anxiety, and just kind of figure out ways to work through it. One of the things that helped me the most with kind of getting back was giving myself grace, but also being resilient at that moment. You know, having that moment to say, okay, I can bounce back from this. I can and I will be in a better place than I was going into this unfortunate event. And understanding that setbacks and failures are setting you up for comebacks and winning seasons. And understanding that having a positive mindset, although like sometimes like in that moment, I ain't gonna lie to you, I wasn't very positive. I did the best that I quite possibly could. I think I did okay. But having a positive mindset and determination to keep going is resilience. And when you are faced with the most difficult situations sometimes in life, you know, there's no timing on when you bounce back, and there's no timing on when the resilience will no longer be needed in so much in that situation, but it is a key component in you improving yourself and getting out of that little bit of a rut that you're in. The fourth one, kind of tapping into mindset, is having a growth mindset. I don't think I've ever had a fixed one, to be fair. Maybe I did. Being a Taurus, there's a good chance that I did. There's a very, very good chance that I had a little bit of a fixed mindset maybe at some point. I think we all have a sense of a fixed mindset because it's okay to have a bit of both, which is something that I've learned. It's okay to have a little bit of a fix and a little bit of a growth. But I'm more of a growth mindset. And I think that if you're on a personal and self improvement journey, a growth mindset is extremely important. It's a commitment to continuously improve and learn and grow. Of course, growth mindset. Um, while seeing challenges as like the biggest opportunities, going back to when what happened to me at my job back in 2022, if you had asked me at that moment, do I see the big picture of what could come out of this? God, no. Absolutely not. Not at all. But over time, I really had to take a step back and said, like, this is a challenge. It's a not the greatest situation, but what can I get from this? Like, what is the upside from all of this? What can I gain? What are the opportunities in the midst of this unfortunate event? And it's difficult, of course, in the beginning to think about the opportunities. Like, no one wants to do that, right? But it's a way to shift your mindset to a positive and growth mindset so that you could not have to sit in maybe a negative moment and a negative mindset. And the last one, which I know a lot of us have a tough time with, is accountability. Yeah, holding yourself accountable, right? Holding yourself accountable from your actions, decisions, your outcomes, whether it's positive or negative. I think a lot of us think about the negative aspects of accountability because, yeah, it's calling us out, right? But there's positive spots of it as well. Holding yourself accountable for the things that do work, like that's celebrating. Celebrate yourself. You feel me? Don't be afraid to celebrate yourself. Don't be afraid to hold yourself accountable and say like, "Yeah, I did that. I did that shit." Now, on the opposite side, which a lot of people talk about, which is holding yourself accountable when you do something wrong and saying, "Yeah, I did that," versus trying to like sugarcoat it or beat around the bush about it. It's saying like, "Yeah, you know what? I have these are the consequences of my actions." And it doesn't mean that you did something to someone else. It could just be something you just even just did to yourself, something that you've accepted over time, steps that you know you could have taken or you didn't take and you chose not to, like just different ways around accountability. But I those are the my say my top five core values when it comes towards success. And for I think a lot of successful people use these. So just kind of going back in, number one is integrity, choose discipline, three is resilience, four is growth mindset, and five is accountability. Those are probably your go-to, but for me personally, integrity is the top one, and it's kind of moved up. Also keep in mind, like, your core values will change, your core values will switch up. They won't always remain the same. Um, Personal development's on mine, self-improvement's on mine, and they like, everything's just kind of fluctuated and move. I would say vision is on mine too. Family is a big one. I'm using successful people as like the top 5. Your core values will change. Your core values will be a very long, long, long list. It will not be short. So when you think about Kai Sennett, you think about Dave Chappelle, two individuals that turned down 50 or $60 million deals, and they said, "No, this is going against my values, this is going against what I stand for." Think about your core values before you say like, "Yeah, it's nice that they have money and they did da da da." No, but think about your own core values. If it was going against it, minus the money, because yo, we could attract money no matter what. So if something is going against your core values, are you gonna really do it? Because in the end, it could just come out in not the greatest way. Like it could because think money is energy. So if you're attracting a bad vibe from that money, from a deal that you know deep down inside ain't for you, and it goes against everything that you stand for, it really makes sense to go for that deal. I don't know if you know, like I mentioned it before on my podcast. Check out my podcast every Tuesday. Dope Life Podcast gets launched. It gets dropped at 6:55 in the morning, Eastern time. By the way, I had a gentleman that millionaire wanted to offer to work with me, but he couldn't really even get what I was doing correctly, which is kind of foul in my eyes because I'm like, yo, I have I'm all over the internet. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, my website. Like you could find me, LinkedIn. You could find me. So I was when he said like, yeah, I'm a millionaire. I could do this. Blah blah blah. I took a step back and immediately my gut said, no, this is not the person you want to work with. It goes against your values, and I declined it. And I remember talking to someone after the fact and just saying, yo, this happened, blah blah blah. And they said, nah, you went for your values. You stood on your values. You stood on that, and don't ever change. So before we look at Kai Cenat and we think, oh, $60 million deal, he's nuts for dropping that. Oh, and we go back to thinking Dave Chappelle was crazy for dropping a $50 million deal. Think twice. Think twice, because if it's going against your values, you're going to think twice. All right, so before we go ahead and we finish off, I want to do a quick little exercise, and you could save this, send this to yourself, whatever. This is an exercise I've used to really set a great foundation for my goals for 2025. And I apologize I didn't do it in the last video of last year because this is the first week of 2025. But I'm popping it in for this week, and this is something you're gonna want to do. I want you to list out. I wrote it out for you guys. I want you to list out your non-negotiables. Okay. So on a piece of paper here, I don't know if you can see it. I'm doing my best. Non-negotiables. You see, there's different categories. We got finance, we got family, we got health and wellness, personal and professional. You could change it however you want. And if you could see, there's 1, 2, 3. You want to list out 3 non-negotiables for each category. You want to list out 3 non-negotiables for each category. This part is important because a lot of times when we set goals, we set them and then we forget that we have other obligations that we have to, other responsibilities that we have to pay attention to. So I want you to, on a sheet of paper when you get a chance, not negotiables. Then you have the categories here, and 1, 2, 3 each. If you have more, by all means, do more. Now, shout out to my mentor, by the way, for giving me this great idea. On another sheet of paper, you're going to put in the 4 quarters of the year. We got January to March, April to June, July to September, October to December. Now, in each square, you're going to write down your important non-negotiables that you cannot miss. So I'll give you an example. May is the month that I am born in. I refuse to book anything. No speeches, no podcasts being recorded. My clients are aware, and if not, I tell new ones I am not here that week. It's obviously like if we can figure something out, we'll figure something out. But typically, I don't do anything. So, sorry, I'm doing this. Right here, I'll put May, your birthday. Let's say, for example, you have an anniversary, a wedding anniversary, right? Let's say it's in July right here or something like that. So in July, you're gonna put wedding anniversary. The point of that is that in each quarter, you know what week and what non-negotiables you do not schedule anything in. That's the whole point of this. And once I did this, shout out to my mentor again. Once I did this, it made far more sense because now when I'm planning for this year, and this is why I've told you before, do it per quarter because it's far more easier. You do by quarter, it's easier. Now when I'm planning for this year, instead of me saying, "Oh man, I have this, I have this coming up," and this person saying, "Yo, can you come and do this speech or you come and do this workshop?" I could look at my non-negotiable, like, "What week were you thinking?" Blah blah blah. Okay, no, I can't do that week. No worries. Like you would have to find somebody else. Or yeah, I am available because each quarter I know what weeks I'm not available and what weeks are um um I am available. So I want you to do that. So again, I'm gonna go back a look. Pull this back up. So right here, again, finances, family. Ooh, geez, I'm doing top. Put non-negotiables at the top. Finances, family, health and wellness, personal, professional, and write 3 non-negotiables that you have. So if you have things where you know your life's about to change just a little bit because some things are happening, this is really good. This is important. And then write draw a little line, like a little X or a cross, however. And then in each square, you're gonna put the quarter, the month, so January to March, April to June, July to September, October to December, and what your non-negotiables are and what dates. So at least you know that anything you try to plan past that point, You're like, nah, not gonna be busy. Not I'm gonna, sorry, not available, not available. The whole point of that is to just set the goals with pure intention. Now, I also want to tap into one more thing, and then I'll let you guys go. I'm beyond my time. Uh, yes, tourist gang for sure. I'm sorry, I'm a tourist gang. What can I say? Uh, one thing for sure I want to tap into is if you still have not set your goals for this year, don't even sweat it. Okay, don't sweat it. If they come to you in the second quarter of the year, cool, right? Because we want to be intentional with everything that we're doing in 2025. We are more purpose over progress this year, where we are aligning ourselves more purpose over progress. Because when you walk with purpose, the progress is just going to come in like that. So don't sweat it. So if you feel like you don't have anything yet, just think of three things that you know for a fact that you can do in the first quarter, or and if you can't, you do it in the next quarter. Don't sweat it. Do not sweat it. All right, y'all. So I'm out. I hope you guys have a dope and successful week. I want to thank you for tuning in to another successful Sunday. And I will see you next week. Don't forget to check out next week's episode of the Dope Life Podcast. It comes out on this Tuesday, 6:55 a.m. It drops Eastern Standard Time. I appreciate you for taking the time out and chilling with me. As always, y'all, walk with peace and walk with love.